see here. Hey there. Sorry for the delay here. I'm new to this streaming thing, really, and I'm trying to figure out how to use this stream deck and all of that. So I don't know what I'm doing here. So I'm doing the best I can, at least as far as streaming goes. But I am a retired pastry chef, so that part I do know. So anyway, what is on the menu today? Today we are going to make an angel food cake. And this is one of my very, very, very favorite cakes. It has a long storied history, really, and we'll talk through that. And also, we're going to try and upgrade it some because the angel food cake, today is kind of like the humble thing that we bring to our summer church gatherings, but it used to be a really something that was center stage. So let's get into it. It's a fairly straightforward recipe, really simple compared to a lot of cakes, and super awesome. I have these great screen-in-screen situations here, which will give us an opportunity to look top down. Nobody wants to see my computer. And we can work through the recipe. Sorry, I'm just getting used to all of this. I'm not a streamer, so my day job is a data scientist, actually. All right, let's get to work. The very first thing that we need is a handy dandy mixer. And this is really, really important. Just from the very simple standpoint that this recipe, to whip air, sufficient air into these egg whites, is going to take a little bit of a time. And it just reminds me as I'm doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this up. It's just on position number 3. And it just reminds me of doing this by hand. Because if you could imagine whipping this whole thing, this is 11, 12, 13 total egg whites that just went in here. And we need to whip this into stiff peaks, and that's going to take a bit of time. And to help that along, I'm going to add in some cream of tartar and a bit of salt, just like this. I'm just going to let that go, and for the moment, it's sort of making this sloshy, liquidy kind of noise. And one of the things I'm going to do is set this aside, and as we're making the berry compote topping and the whipped cream and that sort of thing, I'm going to be listening to this because it's going to go from this liquid sloshy sound to kind of a slap, whack, 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 whack kind of sound as it's mixing, and then it's going to go silent. It's going to be quiet. And that's when I know that I'm getting close. All right? The next thing, adding into this slowly, is now that I'm seeing some froth. So we're seeing a bit of froth here. And what I'm going to start adding in is some of the sugar. And I'm going to add the sugar in, let's say, 3 stages. So that'll be stage 1. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to add in the vanilla. This is vanilla extract and orange blossom extract. So I want a little orange flavor in here. There we go. I want to let this go. Now, I was looking at the ingredients for angel food cake because certainly it is easier to make an angel food cake from the Betty Crocker box. So I was looking at the ingredients, and there's a dozen ingredients in the angel food cake in the pre-made box, and some of those are perfectly pronounceable. Egg whites, dried egg whites, cornstarch, that sort of thing. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. There's gums, and there's citric acids, and there's a chemical that's used to help with whipping, with frothing. And I just think to myself, you know, this recipe it's a sponge cake. which just means that it's whipped eggs and flour and sweeteners and put together to make a sponge cake. It uses air as a leavening agent rather than chemicals like the baking powder, baking soda, the reaction of acids and bases there. And it was first printed in the 1850s in the Kentucky Housewife, which is a cookbook subtitled Collection of Recipes for Cooking, which kind of reminds me of Dwight Schrute's Gym for Muscles, if you're a fan of The Office. Anyway, they made this recipe the same way, ostensibly, that we're making it here, though they called the measurements a bit different. It was 1 tumbler of flour and 1.5 tumblers of sugar. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is a tumbler? Well, it tells you in that recipe, down at the very last line, it says, a tumbler is 4 gills and a quarter. You might be wondering, what the heck is a gill? Spelled with a G, by the way, but pronounced Jill. And, well, a Jill, if you're interested, is 4 fluid ounces. And, the way things were measured back in the 1850s, and all the way up until, say, the 1860s, right after the Civil War, I believe, was that people were just using cups. A cup was a cup. And a teaspoon was a teaspoon. And a tablespoon was a tablespoon. And this is how measurements were done forever, because there wasn't a defined cup. And this is part of the reason why I like to use a scale. So anyway, we're going to let this go to town for a while. It's making that slappy slap noise. I'm going to take off my mic and see if I can put it in here. See if you can hear the... I can hear that slap. Slap, 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 slap. And anyway, so I'm going to wait and listen when this starts to get silent. Then we're going to start paying attention to it. But until then, we're just going to let it sit over here. The next thing we have to do, as outlined in the the Kentucky Housewife cookbook, is to sift the ingredients, to sift the flour and the sugar. And this is actually a critical step here because we want to get a really refined texture in our angel food cake. So I don't have a sifter, but I do have a wire mesh. I try not to buy unitaskers, and I think of a sifter as a unitasker. So I will be using my wire mesh and my spare bowl. So the next thing is fairly straightforward. Everything goes in here, boom, just like that. And I'll give you a little top-down view for this. That's kind of fun, being able to switch the views like that. We're going to do this twice, and the third time, so we want this fully mixed together. And the third time we'll be doing it when we incorporate the flour and everything into the cake itself. We're going to fold that in very gently. So that's number one. Next thing, turn on the oven. I failed to turn on the oven. 350 degrees. That'll give me plenty of time to get it started. So here we go. Here is sifting number 2. Boom, comes in thusly. Here we are. Perfect. In it goes. So we are aerating the flour, mixing the granulated sugar and the flour together. This is a pretty sugar-heavy recipe. It does have very few ingredients, just egg whites, flour, cream of tartar, considerable number of egg whites, but it is fairly sugar-heavy. So don't think that this is a healthy recipe by any means. It is indeed not. A little bit of flour and sugar there. Okay. And this is still going whackety, whackety, whack. I'm going to pull it over so you can have a look at how this is coming along. It's going to take a bit of time. But if you see here, what we have so far, it's glossy. It has lots of air in here. It is getting sort of ribbony, but there's still big air bubbles. It's got a long way to go. So let's crank this puppy up. Flappity, 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 flap. Let's go a little faster there. There we go. We'll set that aside. We're going to come back to that. The next thing that we're going to do is make a berry compote. And could you imagine doing this? Like the hand rotor, if anyone remembers, or maybe you've seen it in an antique store, there's a rotary whisk or rotary whip, and that was invented in the 1870s. 1878, I believe. And so this recipe is founded on a European sponge cake, came to the United States. It's a fairly uniquely American cake, first written about in 1850s. So there's a 25-year span where people were doing all of this whipping just by hand, just whacking that thing away by hand. And that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. So thank the Lord for these modern conveniences. All right, next we're going to make a berry compote to go along with it. Oftentimes the angel food cake is served with a jam or served with berry sauce of some sort. I'm going to make a compote. What differentiates a compote from a sauce? And then actually we're going to make a modification to it as we go along. Well, a compote is differentiated from a jam in that a jam is kind of smooth chunks. There's chunks in it, but it's been blended up, and it is thickened with something like pectin or gelatin, cornstarch or some such. It's thickened in some way. A compote, on the other hand, we're leaving it is mostly chunky, whole fruits wherever possible. So I'm just going to mash up about 25% of this, about a quarter of it or so. It's not going to be thickened with anything extra. It's going to be instead reduced in order to thicken it down to a syrupy consistency. So here we go. Very straightforward situation right here. You see we have berries and there's some liquid in there as well, and that all is going to reduce down until it becomes sauce-like. Just going to give this a few squishes with this mashing tool. It's a mixture of blueberries and raspberries. That's it. That is it. Really very little effort, really. Very little muscle put into this. Right there. I'm gonna wash my hands a little bit and wipe them. Here. All right. And into that, so this is 3 cups. I normally use the metric system for all my cooking, but with something like this, it's fairly straightforward and simple. So just 3 standard cups, and then for each cup is just 1 tablespoon of sugar. So into the pool that goes a little bit of salt, and let's go with a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of citrus here. I'm going to go with 1 teaspoon for this amount. Boom. 1 generous teaspoon, a little spilling happening there, but that's all right. That's all right indeed. And all we're going to do is throw this onto the fire. Boom. There it goes. And that's going to take a good 10 or 15 minutes or so. So we've got a little bit of time to work with. All right, let's see. Listen, how is this coming? It is not making a flappy flapper. It's making less of a flappy flap noise. Let's, here we go. You hear that? It is silent. So now we start to pay attention. And I'm going to wipe, I got a couple little berry splats here. Just don't want to have those. All right. Let's have a look. There's something I want you to pay attention to. That, you see how it's holding streaks? Let's see here. There we go. If we see right in here, it's sort of holding these streak shapes along the edge. And when I crank it up, when I run it, you can see, a little too much. You see these kind of oblong shapes that are being picked up and how it's holding, it's sticking against the sides, and it's keeping these streaks and lines in there, right? And we're not quite there yet. So if we pull this down, again, let's have a look. We're getting really close to see, if you can see this, boom, you see that? We're getting close, but it doesn't want to hold up on its own. But we're getting very, very close. All right, here we go. And once we get done with this, we will fold in, crank it up, there we go. Once we get done with this, we will fold in the flour and sugar, and then from there, we'll fold in the flour and sugar, and then from there we will put it into the tube pan. Let's talk about the tube pan for just a moment. The tube pan is an interesting thing. Let's go here. It is different from a bundt pan in a couple of critical ways. Let's grab a bundt pan, for example. So, you can see here that they both have this center tube situation, right? This center column. Let's see, I want to pay attention. Don't want to lose track of this as it's going. Almost. So close. So close. There we go. There we go. Crank you back up. But the critical difference here between this beautiful bundt pan, which makes wonderful pound cakes, is that it doesn't have these legs, and it doesn't have, the center column is not removable, and that is really handy when it comes to getting the cake out. The legs are very important because when the angel food cake is done, we're going to pull it out and set it on the counter thusly. And the reason why is because if it's upside down, or I should say right side up, the cake itself, when it's warm, is so delicate, so fine, that it will actually sink on itself. So we're not going to grease this at all. We want it to climb up and stick so it has something to hold on to on the side of the pan. But then we're going to flip it upside down and let it cool for about 2 hours, so that way it sort of hangs. There's other things that we would do this with. For example, panettone, the Italian bread that's very famous around Christmas time. The panettone is pulled out of the oven and then hung upside down in order to allow it to grow a real big, well, noggin on top of it. It's like a giant muffin. They're such a wonderful, panettone is a wonderful thing. So let's set this aside for just a moment and put away our bundt pan. And let's have a look if we are at our stiff peak. It's so very close. So very close. We want it to just hold up on its own. Very, very close. In the meantime, I'm going to switch over and check and see if there's any comments or anyone in the stream, because I have no idea. And as I said, I am just getting used to this, sort of trying to figure all of this stuff out. So I'm assuming you all can hear me. Hey, Keith. There we go. The audio cues for knowing the whippings. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Unfortunately, after it goes silent, it's only visual cues. But yeah, there's definitely the audio cue is a handy thing. All right. I think we are probably there, and if we are not, we are close enough for jazz, as my old classical music instructor used to say. Let's get this out of here. We're going to throw down this, we're going to get rid of this out of the way. And let's do a little bit of folding here, yeah? Let's do some folding. I'm going to fold this in 3 stages, just like I folded in the sugar from earlier. So stage number 1, oop, where's my sifter? There it is, because they're all going to get sifted in. My sifter's a little wet. Don't want that moisture in there. I don't want clumps. There we go. So here we go. Throw it all in thusly. And that's probably good. And just through the middle and up the sides. Through the middle and up the sides. Simple as that. Boom. Through the middle and up the sides. And once that is looking fairly incorporated, we're using cake flour here. If you want to talk about the difference between cake flour and bread flour and such, we can. It really comes down to the protein content. When I was working in the pastry shop, at a very large pastry shop, we had these huge bins, and they were not reliably labeled as bread flour, all-purpose flour, cake flour, and such. So what we'd end up doing is grabbing a handful of the flour and squeezing it as hard as we can, and then you'd look at it, it'd open your hand, and if it was cake flour, it would just dissolve immediately. And if it's all-purpose flour, it would kind of split in half, in maybe 3-4 clumps. And if it was bread flour, because of the protein content in the bread flour, it would hold together really, really well, and so it would just hold the shape. And that's how we would tell the difference between those different flours. It was not the most organized pastry shop I'd ever worked in. And so here we go, mixing it thusly. Okay, here we are. This is looking pretty lovely. It's getting kind of sticky. Everything is getting pretty well incorporated. I'm not too worried about gluten development. I just want to make sure that there's not much, there's no dry spots. Just don't want any dry spots. That's it. And then the next part, boom, we get our pan, and we're just going to fill it up. Fill her up. And this part is sticky and messy, of course. And then we get to have a little bit of fun. We're going to upgrade. We're going to upgrade this thing because I baked one yesterday, so I have one sitting on the sidelines just waiting to be worked with. All right, here we go. Here we go. One of the simplest cakes to make, one of the tastiest cakes to make. I don't know about you, but for me, the angel food cake is a big nostalgia trigger. Just reminds me of summer days, and I decided to make this today for you all because I just needed a dose of spring. I know we're not quite there yet, but I just needed a dose of spring anyway. So here we are. Here we go. And I'll pop this into the oven, and it'll be done in roughly 40 minutes. At 350 degrees in my oven, roughly 40 minutes. And that is all she wrote. Okay. Now let's grab the one that we did already, and I have cut into it a fair bit. I have cut into this one a fair bit, just doing a little bit of testing. And I'm going to grab the compote, and you know, just for fun, let's throw together a little whipped cream as well. Let's throw together some whipped cream. That'll only take a minute. It really will. It'll just take a minute. All right, so if I were working, trying to upgrade this a little bit, here's something that I might do. I might take this, angel food cake, cut it thusly. Let's see. I'm going to cut it into, let's say, I'm going to cut it thick with a capital T and try to square it off. And of course, these bits that I'm cutting off would not go to waste. They would either get dried down and used for some sort of a crumb topping, or just put in a bin, and the vultures in the back of the house would eat it. And what I'm left with is this kind of cube thing. We don't have to cook it in the round like this. Excuse me, my mouthful. We could cook it in a loaf, and then we'd get squarer pieces. But let's pretend this is a nice square or rectangle. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit of butter and throw it into a pan at a medium-ish heat, kind of a gentle heat. Oop, butter is making a bit of noise. That might be a little too hot. Let's see. And because this has a lot of sugar in it, it should caramelize on the outside. And let's give it just a little extra salt. Just a little skosh extra salt. A pinch. And here we go. So, let's say we are in a fancy pants restaurant. We have our berry compote that we've made. I'm going to throw together some whipped cream while this is all going down. And we need a plate. What would be a good plate for this? There we go. Let's say that plate. And we're not going to go too overboard. But what I'm going to do is take this pan of butter and just sink it in there. And this works really well with pound cakes. bread puddings. You take a bread pudding and cut it into cubes and then sear it on all 6 sides and then serve it with ice cream and like a dulce de leche sauce and stuff. It's bonkers, just bonkers how good that is. So, all right, whipped cream, a quick whipped cream. This is off the cuff. I was not thinking about making whipped cream until we started talking about it. But who doesn't love a whipped cream? I'm going to use a larger bowl so I have more room to gallop. Let's see here. So 1 cup of cream, and for every cup of cream, I'm going to add 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. The reason why I'm only doing 1.5 or 1 to 1.5 is because I am not a fan of super sweet, despite being a pastry chef, super sweet whipped creams and desserts. I like to keep my desserts a little bit more mellow than that. I don't want to have people leaving the restaurant feeling like they need to go to the dentist or they're feeling sick from just having so much sugar, because it goes right to your bloodstream. All right, let's give this a little look. Let's look at how this is. See, look at that. Look at that beautiful toast right there. Oh, boom. A little beautiful toasted right on there. Back on the heat, and we're just going to keep letting it toast. And while that's going, whipped cream. Sorry for the noisy bit. Whip, whip, whip. I can tell that I haven't been in the restaurant in a while, because I used to be able to whip this amount of whipped cream and never get tired. And my whisking arm is now it feels like a workout. Before it didn't feel like a workout. I guess that's what happens when you're not whisking on a daily basis anymore. So here we are. Almost there, almost there. You can see how it's starting to thicken up, And let's give you a different view. Boom, different view. A little picture-in-picture action. I mean, who wants to just look at a plain plate with nothing on it, right? So, all right. The other thing, if I'm thinking about this in a fancy restaurant context, what am I going to think about doing? I need to lay down a base. I want to put this on all 6 sides. I want to get it nice and toasty everywhere. I need a base of some sort. I would put an ice cream with it, more than likely. I would need a base for that ice cream, because you don't want to put the ice cream directly onto the plate, because if you do, it will melt and just slosh all over the place. So often we would take these guys, toast them up, these end pieces, and then throw them into a food processor, and then we could lay those down, or we could toast something and then let it cool to room temperature and place that little toasted item down. As long as there's some insulation between the plate and the ice cream. That's the thing that we're looking for, is insulation between the plate and the ice cream. And that dulce de leche sauce that I mentioned earlier could do a really good job at just that. So, all right, all done. Let's grab our thing here. I'm going to put down some of this. This is a blueberry compote that I made before. And let's see here. How do we, maybe just a little blueberry compote right there. Boop, just right in the middle. I'm going to use a different spoon because I don't want to have my my whipped cream turn purple. So I'm going to use a different. Boom, just throw that right on there. And then take our toasted piece of a toasted piece, we'd maybe stick it in there thusly or something, maybe just like that. So we've got a little toasted piece. And then this would actually work out fairly well. I mean, you know, it's missing some components if we're, you know, talking about it from a strictly a fancy pants restaurant. Some of those components might be things like edible flowers and that sort of thing. But I mean, really, if you sit down and present this to your significant other, and let's see if we can upgrade the compote a little bit. But if you sat down and gave this to your significant other and they were disappointed in what you have produced, you need to have a discussion with your significant other then, because this is going to be really, really tasty. All right, I'm going to add just a touch of water because this is a little too thick, just a little too thick to blend easily. So just a little splash of water into it. Just a splash. And blend away with the stick blender. Just like that. Beautiful. And then once I'm done blending this with the stick blender, I'm going to pass it through my mesh strainer to get any seeds or skin bits out. Here's another little touch. So at the fancy restaurants, we love our stick blenders, and we also really love passing things through fine mesh sieves. So here we go. Let's go ahead and pass this through. Let's grab this. Oh yeah, that has a nice consistency. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That's going to be really good. And let's talk a little bit about some fun plating. So we have this beautiful little puree. They've turned into a sauce. And there's a couple of things that we can do to make it kind of beautiful on the plate. We can, of course, throw it into a squeeze bottle, that sort of thing. But what else could we do? We could, there's some spreading techniques. Let's grab another plate here. I want to show you. Let's grab the same, we have the same item, but we're going to grab this. Ooh, that's very tasty. Okay, so one of the things I used to do was I would take a ketchup, and I would use ketchup as a tool for doing plating techniques. So you can make a little dollop, and then like that. You're just taking the spoon and putting the spoon dead up and down, dead straight up and down, and then swishing it outward, and it helps if you make the noise like that. And then we'll take our piece of ooh, you can hear it. It's crunchy. Listen. See if you can. I don't know if you can hear that. It's nice and crunchy. So let's nestle that sort of in this way. Let's nestle that in this direction. Okay? And we'll go back to our whipped cream. We're going to go back to our whipped cream. Boom. Get just a dollop of that whipped cream, and just, I should use a smaller, more delicate spoon for that, but we'll go like that. And then we'll grab our berry compote from earlier, the very same berry compote. And what I'm going to do is just maybe put a little here, maybe a little there. Something like that, just a little. It's looking a bit messy. It's a bit messy. It would help if we had some contrasting colors. So like Sorrel leaves would be really great here. You know, sorrel leaves would be fantastic. By the way, that's really tasty. We're gonna come back to that. But anyway, there we go. Boom. Not too shabby. Not too shabby for how long have we been at it? 40 minutes. And that's it. 40 minutes. And we've got a pretty snazzy dessert. And let's dig into it. And I'm going to have some extra whipped cream maybe because I'm just a sucker for whipped cream. There we go. Fantastic. Oh, listen to that. Crunch. When was the last time you heard an angel food cake go crunch? Oh man. There's nothing quite like toasted sugar and eggs. It's like it tastes like the crusty part on the outside of a pancake, like the crusty part of a pancake or the crusty part of a waffle. Oh man, that's really good. That is dangerous to have for dessert. Anyway, that is it. So, all right, everybody. This is it. This is how you make angel food cake and then elevate that angel food cake a little bit. Just some ideas to elevate the angel food cake. And if you want the recipe, you can go to easecake.shop/blog, and the angel food cake recipe is there, along with loads of other recipes. And if you want to support what we do, then go ahead and buy any of the products that are on the store. And until then, until next week, I will just keep eating this. Adios.